Hi, Justin. Thanks for joining. We're just waiting on a couple of people to dial in and then we'll get started.
Thanks for having me, Jenny.
While you're there, if you wanted to just introduce yourself, I'd love to know a little bit more about you. Where are you calling in from and how did you hear about the webinar?
Got a bit of noise in the background. Is that okay? The TV's on in the background, but I'll try anyway.
Okay.
My name's Justin. I'm a self-started IT consultancy business in Melbourne.
Yeah.
I do SEO, websites, social media advertising, and basically everything from fixing computers to building them. I've been going since 2017. I have one employee and just keeping it nice and tight at the moment, trying to learn some new things.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for joining. Are you mainly based, is all of your work in Melbourne? Or are you doing work remotely as well?
So I work remotely. There's nothing overseas at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. What would you like to get out of tonight's session?
I joined on the auspices that Nick Cree had my back and was going to show me something good tonight. So just following Nick's reaching out to me tonight to join, and thought I'd have a look. Why not?
Okay, well, wonderful. So hopefully we don't disappoint you, Justin. And I've actually got Nick on the call today as my support techie, helping me out. So welcome again, and hopefully this meets your expectations. David, hello. We're just introducing ourselves, David, and just saying where you're calling in from and how you heard about the webinar.
Hey guys, just signing in from home. I follow you on social, Jenny, so I look forward to this one. I'm actually going to have a daughter who's going to be sitting with me on this one as well. So I think she's got a fair bit to learn.
Oh, perfect. And do you mind me asking how old she is?
17, going to 24.
Yep, I have a 24-year-old going on 30, so
yeah,
I
okay,
can
awesome.
relate. And just one more question. What would you and your daughter like to get out of tonight?
No, just really open up our eyes to hear a bit more about the self-talk and the challenges of being women in business and stuff like that. I think it's one of those things that I need to appreciate my up-and-coming leaders within my organization. And also obviously for my daughter to be exposed to, think outside the social media and things like that, just get a bit more appreciation of the world outside of the TikTok and YouTube.
Okay, lovely. Well, I am really delighted. I'm just writing some notes down here. I'm really delighted that you guys have joined us. This whole business really started out of my own journey as a single mum. And this is not part of tonight, but just as a little aside, my daughter was in a very a nice socioeconomic area. She was going to school. I was thinking life was beautiful. And then she's come home and share stories with me, even as young as 12, about things that were happening at school. And, kids were cutting or self-harming, and just their headspace wasn't in a good place at all. And the tools that they had available to them just really wasn't helping them. So a lot of what I do in my work, although I work with women in business, I also work with a lot of mums. And my ambition is to actually go out and work in the schools and bring some of this messaging into schools, because I think that kids really need that support and they need an alternate way of thinking about it. So I really appreciate you being here this evening. I'm going to get started because we've got a bit to cover and I want to make sure that you walk away with tremendous value from tonight. So the first part of the session is really going to be looking at, let me see if I can get my slides to work, going from doubt to dauntless. So this is a place of being in action. So where you just feel like you're stuck, you're spinning your wheels, you have these ambitions, you want to go places, but you can't get yourself to do the things that you need to do. In some cases, I've met clients who have even just given up setting goals because they're so sick of failing on themselves and not actually achieving what they want to achieve. So in tonight's session, really want to take you from that place of inaction and move you to a place where you're determined, you're purposeful, you have success, and you're in action. Like, so you're actually doing the things that you're meant to be doing, that you know you need to do for your success. What I'd like you to walk away from in tonight's session is the ability to see the effects of self-doubt. Like, there's one thing to have self-doubt, and there's one thing to be able to hear the inner critic. And we're going to go through that a little bit tonight. And this thing called the imposter. And I'm definitely covering the imposter syndrome tonight. So it's one thing to know that you have that. But there are so many people I meet in my coaching and just out in the world who are aware that they're doing something, and they are aware that it's affecting them negatively, but they don't have the tools and the resources to actually go from that awareness into what I call active awareness, where they can actually take action and do something about it. So tonight, I would love for you to be able to say, Jenny, I was able to walk away with this, and I was able to take some action in areas of my life where I felt stuck, where I felt fearful, and I was able to develop some new strategies for dealing with that. And being able to see how these effects can be paralyzing sometimes. And for me personally, I'm going to share a bit of my story as we go on. But one of the things that I noticed is that this paralyzing effect can go on for years, sometimes decades. And we just stay stuck in it. And part of the work that I do is going to help you to start to identify some of these patterns that have been just incorporated into how you live your life, because there's a context that you're living inside of that's completely invisible to you, and you can't escape it. Right now, you can't escape it, right? So we're going to see if we can confront some of these limiting beliefs, these fears, and these doubts, and do so in a way that gives you power so that you can actually create those results that you're looking for in your life. If you stay to the end, there's a little bit of enticement for you, but I actually have put together a free imposter checklist. So it's a list of questions where you can sort of go back to and refer on a daily basis. How are you managing in light of the conversation we have today? And how can you keep yourself in check? I've also put together what I call the 5 archetypes. And I actually didn't create that. That's somebody else's work, but it's the 5 imposter types. And we're going to cover that in today's session. So you're going to be able to walk away from that. Now, the reality is we are all of those types, and we're going to cover that, but you'll be able to see where that's showing up for you on a moment-to-moment or a day-to-day basis. All right, so this session, kind of ironic, Justin and David, and David's daughter, I'm glad that you're with me. But this session was designed and is designed for the people, that I'm choosing to work with, in this case, business owners, CEOs, and coaches. And yes, they do predominantly tend to be women, particularly women in leadership, women aspiring to leadership. But of course, what we're talking about tonight is at the level of being human. So I have no doubt what I'm going to cover is something that you're going to resonate with. But here's the thing. Some of this stuff is going to manifest in you as gentlemen very differently to how it manifests in women. One of the common questions people ask is, do men suffer from imposter syndrome? And I can tell you with a resounding answer, it is yes. But how does it look and for men as opposed to women? And I'm going to be calling on you both to, well, all 3 of you actually, to be sharing as much as you like through this session, right? So I don't want to be lecturing to you. I would love it if you actually contribute to the conversation and share with me some of the insights that you're getting as we go along. So a little bit about me, if we haven't met before. My name is Jenny Moutou. I run a business called She Leadership. I've actually started out in the coaching industry way back in the early 2000s during the construction boom in Perth. And as that would suggest, I worked a lot with men in male-dominated industries across Perth who were part of that construction boom. Some of my early successes during this time, and I was in my mid-20s, I didn't necessarily have all of the coaching skills I have now, but I did have a deep level of perception and intuition that I was able to bring into my coaching. So some of my early successes included things like coaching a gentleman who was in charge of the Leighton Kumagai construction. So they built a massive tunnel. The distance between the Gold Coast and Brisbane actually was a little bit longer, 100 kilometers from Perth to Mandurah, which is no mean feat. It was a Japanese and Leighton's joint venture. And I remember meeting this gentleman. He was in charge of the whole construction site and complaining that he was spending hours and hours after his day job to actually do the admin required in the job. And me, being little naive 20-year-old me, says, why don't you just turn off your phone? And he looked at me like I was an alien, just dropped down from the planet. Like, girl, do you know what you're talking about? You can't do that, you know? But I had this whole conversation with him about treating people how to, teaching people how to treat you, right? So that if you're in communication with people and you say, guess what? I'm going to turn off my phone between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. It's the quietest part of my day. I'm going to get this admin done. This is where you're going to find me if something goes wrong. You can come and get me. I will be there. I will do whatever is required in that time. But if you really don't need me, this is the chunk of time I'm going to be spending to do that admin work. And, he was on I think a 12-week program. And by the end of that 12-week, he was turning off his phone between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. and getting his admin done. That meant he was going home to be with his wife and kids without the stress of all of that coming with him into the workplace. I absolutely loved my job. I knew that coaching was my calling even way back then. But as life would have it, it just came too easy, right? So I ended up launching careers in finance, in the not-for-profit sector, in recruitment, in tertiary education, and in security during that whole time. And all of the time, no matter what roles I've done, it's always been about the development of people. And I've really enjoyed that. So it got to about 2021, and we were sort of into COVID at that stage, and depending on where you were in Australia, you were affected differently. I decided I was done. I left a very good paying job behind and bought myself a 4-wheel drive, and I was on the road. So I decided I needed a sabbatical. There's my daughter. She was well and truly able to take care of herself by that point. And I hit the road. And off I went from Perth to Darwin. It took me 3 months. And along the way, I started to contemplate, what am I doing with my life? So this was a sabbatical. This was a chance for me to get to know, who is this Jenny Moutou and what is she really capable of? Because way back in those beginning days of my coaching, I had met a lot of men who were great mentors, men in business, men in leadership positions who were great mentors for me. And all of them had the same thing to say. They said, Jenny, you have a lot of potential. But you know what was frustrating for me? It didn't matter knowing that. And yes, I felt it in myself. But do you think I could get myself to do what was required to do to realize and live that potential? I couldn't. So back in 2021, I hit the road, and it was my ambition then. My parenting days were pretty much done. I wanted to know, what would it look like if Jenny Moutou lived her potential, and if she went to the edge of what she was truly capable of? Like, who could she become? Because quite honestly, I didn't know. So it was about this time that I hit Kununurra and had a stopping point in Kununurra. And I was reading a book at the time. It was a book by the name of U Squared, and it's by a gentleman called Price Pritchard. Now, in this book, Price starts the book. It's a very small book, 30-something pages. You could read it in an hour or less. And he starts his story about the fly. And he's sitting in a cafe and he's watching this fly. And the fly is getting up, flying towards the window, hitting the window, and then dropping to the windowsill. And now, shakes off because he's like, whoa, what just happened? Now, the fly has one thing in sight. It's freedom, which is outside, right? So gets back up again, goes flying towards the window, hits the windowsill. Whoa, where are we now? Like, shaking off. And you can imagine that this fly is getting more and more rattled. And the story, as Pritchard starts to tell it, is that the solutions we seek in life are often elegant solutions. But, we're convinced that we need to try harder. And we're a bit like that fly. We don't understand that there's a paradigm, in this case, the window, that we can't see, and that's actually causing us the limitations that we're experiencing. So the fly, it keeps flying harder into that window. And Pritchard goes on to say that no amount of trying harder is going to get that fly through that window. Would you agree? I mean, we're talking glass here, right? So he says, though, the elegant solution in this case with the fly would be to turn 180 degrees in the opposite direction and fly that way. And in essence, the fly doesn't need any more knowledge. It doesn't need any more skill. It doesn't need any more practice. It doesn't need anything else than what it already has to get the freedom and the success that it seeks. Well, I've got to tell you, it wasn't enough for me to read that. Because you see, I'm coming from a place where I've been feeling like a used car salesman to myself from my whole life. You know, I've had these goals. I was going to go do this and then nothing happened. And then I had this goal and I was going to do that and nothing happened. And so I've just had this relationship as, you know, somebody who said they were going to do stuff and never did it. Give me a yes in the chat if you've ever had that experience in your life, if you've ever felt like a used car salesman to yourself. I'm going to find the chat so we can see the answers here as well. How are we going, Nick? Yeah, David's giving me a thumbs up. Excellent. Excellent. So here's how it went, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, I've got to do something here because there's no point just reading this book and understanding mentally what this guy's saying. I want to know it in my body. So I decided I'm in the middle of Kununurra. It's a town of 5,000 people, 9 hours west of Darwin. And I was going to run an experiment, right? Because I had to be, at that point, I was going to have to do something to prove to myself that I could follow through. So I came up with an idea. What could I do? Started asking around the town. I was single at the time. Where do people go to meet people? You know? And so I started doing some research. And I found out that most people's response to that was the pub. I mean, let's face it, it's a town of 5,000, not much is happening there. So I went to the pub and I walked in, and what I saw was a sea of men in high-vis gear, which was enough to, you know, scare the bejesus out of me. And so actually I just turned around and walked back out again. So that was my research, and I realized there really isn't any place to go. So I decided to run an experiment. Could I run a speed dating event in a town of Kununurra, a town of 5,000 people where nobody knew me? Would they pay to come and would they have a good time, right? So that was the experiment. That was the container I set up for myself. Now, I set it up like this because I had enough skin in the game to learn some skills and to follow through. But at the end of the day, if nobody attended that speed dating event, I would have lost nothing, right? So here we go. So off we go. And I go through the journey of putting that event together. So it means doing things I'm highly uncomfortable with, like posting on social media and the community pages of the event. It means having to go and approach people and ask them if they're single. Just as an aside, a single woman should never ask a single man if he's single, if she doesn't intend on getting a date or an offer for one. I learned the hard way. And anyway, went around the town and started telling people about this event, right? I got a job at the local pub because I figured I could use that event space for free and it would help me meet more people in a smaller space of time. And I was right, it did. So it came the night of the event, and all the way through this, I'm wanting to back out, right? But I'd set this experiment up. I have to see this through. I cannot be this used car salesman to myself. So I was on the hook. And, you know, I had some friends in town, and they were the kinds of friends where they look like they're supporting you, but actually sometimes maybe you're wondering if they're just hoping you will fail, you know? So that was a good motivator just to keep going. Anyway, the night of the speed dating event, it turned out we had 11 people attend. We had a great night. There were more people in that pub than I had ever known was possible. I'm a city girl. I didn't know that you could get very famous in a small town that quickly. But we had a great time, and there were a lot of people sticky beaking to see who else was coming along. Look, the moral of the story is that enabled me to see what was possible. And that's what potential is all about. It's about turning that vision that you have in terms of what you see as possible for yourself, for your business, for your life, and then mapping out the steps that you're going to take to do that. But of course, the whole time, and as I've expressed to you, I had this self-doubt. I had the inner critic going on. I had so much that was happening inside of me that it's a miracle that we got here, and that, you know, that was successful. So today, let's have a look. Just as an aside, because that experience actually helped me create not only the map of potential, but a whole host of other learnings. I ended up putting in a book, and that's actually going to be released later on this year. All right, so I want to tell you about Lisa. So Lisa was one of my clients, and when we first got working together, one of the things that she shared with me is that she was in social isolation. So she had decided that she didn't have any friends. She had social anxiety. She had a business, but she was not making the money in her business that she needed to. So she was a carer, and she was working in a region where she could have got some more clients to care for and actually built her business up quite successfully. But instead, Lisa chose to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and eat chocolate, right? She was not in a good place. And because she had all of this conversation, like the social anxiety, like I have no friends, and all of these things going on, she was just exacerbating her situation even more. So as we worked together, what happened is that she was able to start to see some of these patterns that she had set up for herself and her life. She started to see how this inner critic got in the way of stopping her from actually doing the things that she wanted to do. And it affected her results. It affected her income. It affected her relationships. So as we started to pull that apart and she got to see how these mechanisms were playing out in her life, she got to make a different set of choices. So as I said, we take people from just awareness to this active awareness so that they can mobilize and make different choices and get a different result. And indeed she did. As a result of us working together, she ended up going out, getting new clients. She ended up creating a community in her region, so a community that she could tap into to support her, but also a community of people that she could get some more work from. She was happy. Her eyes were shining. And, you know, I'd love to tell you about she increased her income to $1 million. No, it wasn't about that. And, you know, not everybody and not every business is about that, but she got her self-esteem back and she got her ability to live her life the way that she wanted to live it, which she wasn't doing before we got together. So this is why I'm excited to share with you today a little bit more about what we're going through. So we're about to get started. Type a 1 in the chat if you're ready and to dive in and you're excited as I am. All right, so in tonight's session, we're going to delve into this thing called the imposter syndrome, and we're going to look at self-doubt and explore what that is and how that shows up for you. There are some other related feelings with this as well, and we're going to go into some of that. We're going to look at how that impacts and affects your ability to be effective in life and in your business. And I'm going to give you some tools and strategies that you can use to deal with doubt and the imposter syndrome when they show up. Now, I'm going to really rely on you to share with me. You know, I'd invite you to come off camera, but if you don't want to, you don't have to do that. But I'd love to hear your voice. And as you share with me what you're getting from these sessions, would really help me to connect with you more and also to be able to give more value. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk and for me to talk about just a little bit how we can work together. All right, so imposter syndrome is defined as a psychological occurrence where you doubt your skills, your talents, or your accomplishments and have a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. That's a lot of words. And I have to say that when I first came across this definition, it was so easy for me to dismiss this definition. And so when somebody said, Jenny, I think you've got imposter syndrome, I'm like, nah, I don't have imposter syndrome, right? But here's the thing is that as I started to delve into this and look at this some more, there were some things about this definition that really stood out to me. So the first one is in bold there, and it's talking about the psychological occurrence. So being able to understand that there is So this imposter and the inner critic is happening right here in between your ears, right? And it's the voices that are being raised. And there is other things just besides voices, and we'll go into that. But that psychological occurrence sets up a pattern. It sets up a pattern of thinking, a pattern of behavior, a pattern of actions or inactions, and a pattern of feelings. So all of those are combined to create this imposter syndrome. And we're going to unpick some of that in today's session. And the other thing is that, you know, like in everything that I've studied across personal development, a lot of people talk about the fear of success and the fear of failure and, you know, related things like that. But there is very little on its own that talks about the fear of being exposed. And part of the reason why some of this is aimed more towards women is that as women, we receive different conditioning than we do as men. And that goes across different cultures as well. I'm being very broad and generalized here, and I'm not necessarily talking about individual households. So I want you to keep that in mind. But there's some subtext that goes with being a woman that we're getting through the shows that we watch. So Netflix, Disney Plus, you know, all of those streams, there's certain messaging that comes through with being a woman. There's certain levels of dynamics that come through with that, right? There's schools, universities, organizations, they all set up a dynamic, and there is a difference between being a man and being a woman, and how that fear of being exposed shows up in both. So gents, again, I'm going to be relying on you for a little bit of feedback here to see how much this resonates for you, because I know as a woman, it totally resonates for me and the women that I work with. And I'd love, 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 love to get some feedback from you. All right. So I want you now just to grab a piece of paper, and we're going to start to go into this a little bit more. So on your piece of paper, I want you to write the words as you see them here: words, feelings, body, and then action, inaction. Okay. And I'm going to explain this as we go along, but as we start to, we're going to move into talking about the archetypes and how, and the 5 different archetypes. And as we do that, we're actually going to start to unpick some of this at the same time. So it's a bit of an experiment. Let's see how we go. All right, let's see. All right. So the other thing I should say is, as we do this work with the words and the feelings and the body and action and inaction, I want you to understand that what we're uncovering here are the psychological patterns. So we're going to be looking at what are the conversations that you have with yourself and with others? What are the feelings you have about yourself or about others? What are the, how does that show up in your body? Like, is there tension? Is there stress? Are there feelings of discomfort? And where does it show up? So not only is it in your body, but where in your body, and how does it feel? Where does it come up? Okay, so maybe you want to locate, like it's in your shoulders, or it's in your head, or it's in your belly, or it's in your legs, wherever it is for you. And then we're going to look at the action or inaction. So when we look at these feelings and these words, what does it actually result in? All right, it's going to make more sense as we go along, but I just want you to keep in mind that at the base of all of this is that fear of exposure, and how it shows up above is that self-doubt. All right, so these are the archetypes, and I'm going to have you consider which one are you. We've got the perfectionist, the expert, the superwoman, the soloist, and the natural genius. Now, I want to say a thing here with regards to imposter syndrome, that it was actually discovered or came out of some research some women were doing, and they were doing that research specifically on women that they identified as high achievers, which is why this particular archetype is about, you know, is very much featuring women, because that study was originally done then. So that just kind of contextualizes that for you. The high achieving women were women who achieved well in academia, or who were considered great achievers in the corporate world. All right, so penny perfectionist. So let's have a look. Penny perfectionist, David's daughter. Maybe you can relate to this. Miss Perfection strives for, well, perfection. Her inner critic runs wild. She's judging her every move herself. So she's looking at everything that she's doing, everything that she says, and everything that she does comes under the microscope for a critical look. She won't let herself make mistakes and can sometimes present like she's flawless. She can be relentless in her judgment of self and of others, and a lack of perfection can make her anxious. And if you invite her over, she'll be checking out your flaws to see if you're not perfect. Right, so there's a little bit of humor attached to this, and I hope you can certainly hear that. The perfection, I had a conversation with my hairdresser recently, and she said perfection came out for her when she did exactly what that last statement said. She went over to her daughter's place to console her about the breakup with her boyfriend and spent more time looking at her daughter's house and the unkeptness of it than she did consoling her. And she talked about like just being in the salon, being able to see products that were on display for sale. If they were out of sync in some way, that would cause her some anxiety. Of course, perfectionism shows up in many other ways. For instance, it can show up as an intolerance for things that aren't the way that they should be. What else? David, Justin, how does perfection, or does perfection show up for either of you guys?
It does in my work, maybe not the people I work with, but definitely my work.
And how tell me a little bit about that, Justin.
Sometimes I have clients who have meetings with me personally, and I've got to show them a product, and they may ask for a change, and I'll want to be able to make that change instantly so that they can see it, like perfecting it in front of them. And sometimes I just have to say to them, I need a bit more time and I need to take this away with me.
Yeah.
And I think I'm at the stage where I should be a perfectionist and should be able to always show them at the time.
Right.
But there's even lapses in my skills where I need to go away and research a little bit and come back to it.
Yeah. And that's natural, right? So one of the things that's interesting about your conversation, and language is a great indicator of some of that inner critic playing out, is when you feel like you should, like I should be able to, and being able to catch that and be able to see, okay, so if we go back to our circle, what are the words that we're saying? I should be is one of those words, right? And then what is the feeling? Like if you're looking at that feeling of being there with your client and having to do something, like, is there a feeling of pressure to perform? Is there a feeling of a fear that maybe you don't look, and I'm putting words here, Justin, I don't know you obviously, but you may not look as competent as you're hoping to because you don't have that answer right away. So what are those feelings that are happening with that, right? And then if we look at the body, where do you feel that anxiety? Like maybe you feel that anxiety in your chest. Maybe you feel a tightness there that, and a bit of a stress that then comes out into your shoulders. So I want you to be in the inquiry of this and how this works for you, because by understanding that, you can start to now identify, because the thing about the inner critic, and I suppose we should have covered this, is that it's the voices in your head, right? But as you start to identify those voices in your head, sometimes those things go underground. Like the more aware you become of your inner critic and its voice, the more likely it is to go underground. And so it manifests in different ways. So one of the ways it might manifest is in your feelings. One of the ways it might manifest is what you pay attention to. So I want to give you an example. Like, as a woman, like many other women, I have some issues with my body. And what I found was, like, if I got out of the shower and looked at myself in the mirror, my eyes, so nothing would be happening in the words, but my eyes would actually take my focus to that very part of the body that I'm always critiquing. And then it would generate these feelings of dissatisfaction in me, like the critical would come out and just like, oh, I need to go to the gym, like, and I can be fun about it now, right? But if you're not aware that this inner critic is working and you're not aware of how it's working, when you're doing those things and you're getting out of the shower and you're paying attention to that area of life, or that area of your body that doesn't work, or it doesn't look as good as you want it to, or you're looking at your business and you're paying attention to that area of your business that just isn't moving, that you can't get results in, I want you to delve in, have a look at those feelings that are being generated. And then what do you do as a result? So when my inner critic is going off, and just to use that example for the shower and looking at my body and identifying parts that I'm not happy with, I then walk away with this feeling of complete frustration. And my action or inaction, may depend on what's going on for me at that moment. So I might end up going to the gym, or I might end up eating a piece of cake that I really shouldn't have eaten, right? And those actions or inactions are either going to take me closer to my goal or further away. And so that's why it's important to start to identify them. All right, so that was the perfectionist. She needs to feel special or to be the best. So there's this striving, this fear of failure. This is very common, downgrading compliments or acknowledgements. So someone might say, David, I really loved how you did that. And you're like, oh, it was nothing. Anyone could do it, right? So they're the words that are coming out of your mouth. You might feel guilty about your success as if you don't deserve it, or you feel like a fake or not qualified. So these go with the perfectionist. So you're starting to see how this is playing out for yourself. So here's some feedback from Cindy. My perfectionism showed up at work. So obviously, sorry, this is not a picture of Cindy. We're keeping her anonymous, but this is her feedback. My perfection showed up at work where I would spend hours and hours redoing reports I had delegated to my team because I was terrified people would find out I wasn't as good as my job as they thought. What I didn't realize was I was undermining the team and causing more stress and work for myself. It backfired when several of my team all quit and I had to answer to management about what was going on. I had to learn to use my strengths and spend my time where I could deliver the most value and let go of the need to be perfect. So the next imposter that we're going to look at is Edna Expert. So Miss Expert has expert knowledge on lots of things, typically backed by science, and she's got, certificates and qualifications galore. Her greatest fear is being caught off guard. What would happen if she didn't know? What would happen if she didn't know the answer? A bit like what you were saying, Justin, what would happen if you didn't know? What would happen if you had to find out? She avoids being vulnerable and over prepares, and she spends hours researching and gaining skills, sometimes in things that don't matter. She'd rather work something out on her own than risk asking for help to get a quicker solution. And because she's the expert, she can't risk delegating tasks, because what if no one can do it as good as her? Now, you're both running businesses, you both have staff. Have a look, like if that's not something that you can identify with, can you see that there are people in your team or in your client base who are potentially operating like this? So what are the words that Miss Expert would say? Where would she likely feel tension or stress in her body? What are the feelings that she might have? So if you're Miss Expert, it might be that I know, maybe something you hear somebody say that all the I know. And also what action or inaction is she going to take? So is she someone who's going to then go down and, do a Google search to find all of the answers that she's looking for? Maybe. All right, so the next one is Sally Superwoman. So I'm sure that you've been around a while. You've probably met a woman who fits in this category, and maybe you can resonate with this as well. Miss Superwoman is strength, and she can take on the world. She's very high achieving. She's the poster girl of determination, and she has unwavering resolve. She moves forward at great speed. She rarely seeks help, hides her weariness and overwhelm. Yet beneath her invisible facade lies vulnerability. The world may see her achievements, but it doesn't witness the toll she pays. And while she conquers mountains, she might miss the quiet sunsets with family or the laughter shared over dinner. And when her head is down solving problems, she's missing opportunities for more business and success, and I would add love and connection. And she risks being burnt out and secretly craves space for herself, but she places others' needs above her own. Now, there are going to be times where we all kind of fall into this, particularly as business owners, where we've got a lot going on. But it's this compulsion to always want to be the one who's going to be leading the charges without the proper boundaries in place for yourself, for your team, for your family, to be able to carve out the time you need to rest and relax, to take the day if you need to. So have a look for yourself. Is this something that you can relate to? Is this something that you have a propensity to do? And maybe let's start to think about some of the strategies that you could use to pull back here. All right, the last one of the imposters is Gina, the natural genius. So Miss Genius is a seeker of instant knowledge, and she races against time. So her impatience for quick answers, and a key word here is impatience, fuels her drive for faster results. She wants success without much effort, believing challenges and setbacks are because she's doing something wrong. Right. And so that's a really interesting one, that she wants success without much effort. Her impatience blinds her to the beauty of the learning journey. And that's what we are all on, ladies and gentlemen. And so seeing the challenge as a stepping stone rather than a reflection of her inabilities is a key point here. Her comfort zone traps her because in it she avoids vulnerability. She can't take on risks, and she can't try new things because she fears that she's going to end up looking stupid if she fails. But wisdom lies in the unknown, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So let me hear from you now. Which one of those are you resonating with the most?
Just having a sidebar with my daughter here. I think she's definitely the Miss Genius category more than the Miss Perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Has a tendency, we've been talking this recently as well, in the sense that she's been having a very easy time at school up until about a year or two ago, whereby things are getting more difficult, more challenging, and she's quite anxious and frustrated about that.
Yeah. So
yeah, the whole thing about the third paragraph, wanting success without much effort, and then any challenges, setback is her doing something wrong, when in reality it's just means that she should actually put in more effort compared to what she's been doing previously.
That's an interesting one as well. I lectured at university for 7 years, and one of the courses that I took care of was a course called the Work Integrated Learning course. So a lot of universities across a lot of disciplines have this now, and what it enables students to do is go out on work placement while they're in their second or their third year of the degree and accumulate around 150 hours worth of work experience. And so, in the School of Business, we had both men and women who would go out on work placement. And what was interesting about that, David, is that both male and female would get feedback from the employer where they had the placement. And so many times I would see a big difference between the men who get feedback and they just cop it on the chin and keep going. They're grateful for the feedback, but they don't make it mean anything about them, right? And then the women who got the feedback, who internalized that feedback, made it mean something about themselves. So when you feel like you're doing something wrong, you're making meaning out of it, right? And but what's interesting is how the brain is wired. And so the brain is wired to make you think that it's something wrong about you, and that's the meaning that it comes to. There's something wrong with me. And I can tell you that there is nothing wrong with you. Even though I haven't met you, I can tell you there's nothing wrong with you. What you want to be able to do is you want to be able to hear that. So let's delve in, if we can, for just a moment here, because you've given me some great feedback. Let's start to look at what is it that your voice is saying to you. So what are the words that you're saying to yourself? So maybe it is something like, there's something wrong with me. And then I want you to think about what feelings does that actually conjure up for you? And then where in the body are you feeling that? And what results do you get? Like, do you find that you want to procrastinate? Do you avoid? Do you work harder? Are you demotivated? And so you don't want to do anything? Like, where are you in all of that? And if you want to share, I'm all ears.
Yeah, Jenny, she's typed into chat. She's a bit embarrassed and shy to be speaking out loud. So she's definitely, in terms of how that self-thinking and self-talk is sort of causing her to procrastinate a lot, and
Yeah.
also feeling of self-doubt.
Excellent. I've just seen that. Thank you. So procrastinating a lot and feelings of self-doubt. Yep. And okay, so if you can catch the words, if you can catch the feelings of self-doubt, how does the feeling of self-doubt feel? What does it make you do or not do? David, what is your daughter's name, by the way?
Audrey.
Audrey. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I should have asked that at the beginning.
No, just okay. She's just a little bit shy. She's I like to get her to be look at things outside of the TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. So it's a learning process for me.
It is. All right. Excellent. Well, I really commend you for you both being here. So Audrey, okay, so you often do nothing despite really wanting to achieve. That's fantastic. That's so good to be able to be aware of that. So when we go back to this iceberg, you get to see that at the top, you're already aware that you have these feelings of self-doubt. And then we're digging now beneath the surface of that water to find out what's actually happening. So you doing nothing, despite you really wanting to achieve, then will produce more feelings in you, right? So you might feel even more like, I'm putting words in your mouth here, I don't know you, but like you might feel even more like you're failing and even more demotivated and even more like doing nothing, right? So you can see how this then just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you're like, wow, this is way too overwhelming. I don't want to even think about it. And off you go to check out the latest TikTok video for a couple of hours. You know, and all of that, I want you to know all of that is completely natural. We all go through some variation of all of that. Yes. All right. So, but you don't have to be stuck there. Okay. And I love that you're in here because I don't get to talk enough to young people about the stuff that's going on in here and just how much it's impacting your happiness. You know, forget about success, like just your happiness with yourself. All right. So, this is the last one, the soloist. Okay, this is me. You know, if anyone had a PhD in self-doubt and imposter syndrome, it would be me. The soloist does everything on her own. She's determined and self-reliant and treads her path with independence. Again, high achieving. but it costs her time and energy and money trying to figure it out on her own. She misses opportunities, sacrifices time with people she loves, and that quest for self-sufficiency adds stress to her body. You know, I gets me in my shoulders and in my neck. And when praised, she deflects compliments. Again, oh, you know, don't worry, anyone could do that. It's easy, you know, like it didn't take me any time at all. Meanwhile, I just spent the last 10 hours getting it done. She's unwavering in her focus and her vision is commendable, but she could 10x her impact if she tapped into a community. And maybe that's just a little bit of a hint of what we could all be doing, is tapping more into the communities of people around us who can help us and support us. So Audrey, when you're in those moments where, you know, like you're just not getting it and things are not moving the way that you want it to, you want to be able to step away and say, right, am I doing this on my own? And if it were easy, I want you to write that question down. If it were easy, what would that look like? If it were easy, you know, what results would I be getting? And really check your expectations, because while you might have had a really good run up to now and had everything easy, you might find, oh, I need to put in a little bit more effort here, or actually, I'm not spending as much time as I think I am in this area. Maybe I need to find a study group, or maybe I need to talk to my teachers, or maybe I need to talk to my peers out in the IT world to find out how I can do this another way and build some connections and some relationships in that way. All right, excellent. So those are some of the imposters, and we've gone through some of the ways that that inner critic manifests. So understanding, yes, sometimes it is those voices in your head, and the more you can pull this out, and I expect that you can walk away today with that circle and with those elements that we've identified and actually add to it, you know, because there's something, you know, that's kind of funny about the inner critic, is that the minute you're like stopping and you're like, okay, I'm going to have a listen here and see what this person's saying, like they say nothing, right? And you can't hear anything, but like the minute you're not thinking about it anymore, right? So you get bombarded. All right. So keep that in mind. And if you can't hear it, it's not because you don't have one. It's just, you know, it knows you're watching. All right. So here's a little bit about what I've prepared earlier in terms of that circle. So in terms of the words, as we go through each of those different imposters, it might be, I know, or it might be words like you're saying, I can do it, or it's just got to be perfect, or I've just got to get this done. Or, you know, in the case of mine, like I just wanted people, just tell me the answer. I just want to know the answer. Some of the feelings that created, and you're going to have your own here, but some examples are things like agitation. So I was agitated at myself or others for just not giving me what I needed or what I wanted. I felt insecure because I would look at, you know, what I had created or what I had done, and I would compare myself to others. That is a big one for the imposter syndrome. Comparison. It will debilitate the most successful people, you know, so you want to watch for that. And the comparisons, like the energy of comparing yourself to others, can be very subtle. It can be, you know, like you don't even know that you're doing it. So you want to look for that. You want to just pay attention to that. It may be feelings of impatience, or feelings about you're worried about what other people will think. And when we look at our body, like how does this express itself in our body? Sometimes it's going to be like we can't sleep. Sometimes we feel tense or stressed. Indigestion, we might experience, you know, our body systems not working like they should. So maybe we feel too hot or too cold, or we've got headaches, or we have body aches and pains, right? So all of that is actually connected, amazing, to the inner critic and the ripple effect of what that does for us in our lives. In terms of actions like working, we might work longer. We might just get involved in busy stuff. I have a client at the moment who has a little bit of this perfectionist and solo, you know, and of course you can be a couple of things all at once here, but she's the perfectionist and the soloist. And I'm having conversations with her about, you need to let some of those tasks go, because she's spending time doing bookkeeping when she has a bookkeeper. like, so she's getting stuck in the busy work without actually getting the results that she wants in her business and generating the income that she's looking for. Other things might be like procrastination. You might, decide that you want to sleep. Like that's your way of avoiding having to deal with what's going on. Or you might go and, get into those TikTok videos and get distracted for a couple of hours. Or you might be someone who feels like you just need to work harder. You just need to get it done. So that's going to be different manifestations for everyone. Anyone want to comment or say anything about that?
Jenny, in your coaching with clients, have you come across cases whereby people are aware, they're aware about it, they accept it, yet still unable to do something about it or make a commitment to change?
Absolutely, David. I mean, I think, that's a big part of what people are dealing with out there, so that first level is very much about getting that awareness. But then once you have that awareness, it's about helping people make that journey across, and that's a lot of what I'm doing with people. And I'll cover a little bit of that in today's session, but absolutely, it's about helping them build that bridge for sure.
Okay, cool. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So Jenny,
Yep.
I'm a bit of a unique case. Both myself and my employee work with disability. So we've both got chronic illnesses and we both rely on each other a fair bit.
Yeah.
I haven't told Nick this before, even though I've met Nick. But I think the first and the last apply to me the most, the soloist and the perfectionist.
Yeah.
And I probably could delegate more work to my employee, but because of the chronic illness, I don't want to put it under too much stress.
Yeah.
She
So then
thinks
do you
she
end
has
up,
to overperform as well.
yeah, okay, interesting. So, I'm happy to have a conversation with you some point, Justin, if you want to flesh that out,
I'd love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
All
can
right.
drop me a chat or something later on with the email, or if you want mine, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, excellent. I'll definitely, part of today, I'll put my booking link in and you can just book a call with me.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. All right, so this is obviously making sense and I'm so glad. All right, so we're gonna look into the strategies now, and this is the part I'm really excited about, is to be able to share with you the kinds of things that you can do to start to arrest what's actually happening in between those ears of yours. All right, so the first one, I'm going to combine a few things here, but the first one is to ask questions. Okay, so when that feeling of self-doubt is happening, and Audrey, things are not coming to you as easy as you would like, I want you to start to identify, hey, you might not hear the voice, just like me in the bathroom looking at my body. You're not hearing any voices, but you're feeling the feeling. So oh, I'm going to ask a question here. So what are the kinds of questions you could ask? The question that you could ask might be, is this true? Like, I'm feeling bad. There's something wrong with me. Is this true? Hell no. Hell no. There is nothing wrong with me. Okay. All right. So ask a question. Is this true? Ask a question like, what is this? What meaning am I making this mean? Like, does it really mean that? And you start to put, and the thing that the question does is it starts to put some distance between you and that voice, because what's happened is that for your entire life, and if you've never tackled the inner critic head on, is that you might be tempted to believe everything it tells you. And the thing is, the inner critic, it's kind of tricky. It's going to tell you all sorts of stuff. And I want to say 90% of it probably isn't true, especially when it's telling you things that are going to end up having you stop as opposed to moving forward in your life. So the first thing you want to do is you want to ask a question. A great question is this true? the other question might be, what meaning am I giving to this? Or what am I making this mean? You know, so then you can start to actually move out of the emotion and just start to come at it with a bit more of your mindset. And then the next question might be, yeah, why would that benefit me in this situation? So Justin's just put that in the chat. How do I want to feel about this? What do I want to get out of this situation? How do I want to perform? So if you're struggling with your studies and you're finding it's not working, how can I make this easier for me? Like, and the thing about the mind and what I want you to get, Audrey, is that your mind is a computer. And as humans, we are wired that when we ask a question, we feel a compulsion to answer, you know? So if you put your mind and you give it good questions, good quality questions, it's going to come back with you with good quality answers. You know, Anthony Robbins, I use this example. He's been around for decades. He's a personal development guru. And he says, when you can ask a better quality question, you'll get a better quality answer. So if you ask your mind, why am I so fat? Your mind's not logical. It just gives you all these bogus reasons about why you're so fat, right? And then suddenly you have a Macca's craving and you're eating, you know, you're drinking that smoothie that you really shouldn't be drinking. And before you know it, you've put on 5 kilos, right? But if you ask a quality question, you're going to get a quality answer. So if your quality question, to use the same example, is, how could I lose weight? Well, now your brain is going to come up with a list of ways, right? And some of those ways you're going to, you know, you might like to do those, and some of those you're like, definitely not. So if your brain said, yeah, well, you could run a 42K marathon, I'm going to be like, I'm out, right? So then the next layer of that is, how could I lose weight and have fun doing it? So now my brain is going to come back with a whole lot of responses that resonate for me. So you use those principles and use that example for how you can start to ask questions of yourself when you hear that inner critic going off the way that it does. Right. So here's the thing about your inner critic. It's a bit like a boxing heavyweight champion that is uncontested. And until you learn to start to hear and see and feel and recognize the actions or inactions that imposter syndrome or that self-doubt creates, it's going to continue to create chaos in your mind, and it's going to be the heavyweight champion instead of you. Look, my money is on you, so I say we do some things to make a change there. All right, so here are some questions again. Is that true? What feeling is that thought causing? What am I feeling in my body? Does this response take me closer to or away from my goals? And then what response, feeling, or action do I want instead? All right, strategy number 2 is learning to see and value your accomplishments. Now, would you agree that we spend a lot of time trying really hard to be the best that we can be in life, but we don't spend enough time reflecting on the things that we've done well, on the things that we've achieved? And when you have imposter syndrome, or when self-doubt kind of takes over in your life, you do that even less. So when you're winning awards or accolades or anything that has got you to get some attention from people and some acknowledgement from people, you're more inclined to brush it off so that it doesn't even impact you. You know, I've had people say to me, you know, I don't want that stuff getting in because I'm just going to get a big head or, you know, whatever. But here's the thing, is that when we can learn to see and value our accomplishments, it builds up our self-esteem. Right? And so we've got to be able to make a list of those things. And that's what the strategy is here, is make a list of what you have achieved in your life. What have you done that you're proud of? What have you done that you feel good about? What have you done that people say, wow, or who are you? What kind of traits do you have that people are always acknowledging you for that? You know, David, I don't know you very well, and we've met a couple of times, but one of the things that I know is that when we're at those BX meetings, you're always so willing to help out and to lend a hand. you know, and you're willing to just step up there, you know. And so to be able to make a list of all those things that you've achieved in your life, you've got this business, you've got this amazing family, you've got this staff member that you're taking care of, you're working in a space like NDIS, for instance, Justin, you're giving value, and you want to write that list out. And, you know, I'd actually recommend going from birth to where you are now and really just listing out everything that you can think of, things that other people have complimented or acknowledged you for, things that people have thanked you for, especially when they're things that you're consistently doing time and time again, and people are consistently thanking you for that. I want you to list it down and be able to see it somewhere. So one of the things that you could do is actually keep a swipe file. Anytime somebody sends you a text message or anything that makes you feel good, like a testimonial in your business, you keep all of that in a swipe file somewhere on your computer. And then when you're feeling down, you're able to just look through all of that and just read those comments and let them sink in. That's the important part. Really let them into your heart, and to acknowledge, you know, this is the human being that you are, and this is the value that you provide for others, and that you are important. For some of us, depending on what we're going through on a particular day, getting out of bed is what we can acknowledge ourselves for. You know, you got out of bed today, you showed up at work, you did what you had to do. And if that's all it was an effort, it was that you did it, you followed through. And so it doesn't always have to be these grandiose things, but you can acknowledge yourself. So again, I'm going to stress the importance of when you are able to acknowledge yourself, even if it's something like, yay, I got out of bed today. You are affirming your self-worth. You are affirming and contributing to your self-esteem, and you are building yourself up from the inside out. And then you can back you know, you got you in that process. All right, strategy number 3 is to embrace the unknown. And David, you know, this is where I play when I'm working with clients, very much in that unknown. So I'm going to go through a little bit around what that unknown is and how it looks. Is we don't have a lot of time left, and I've got way too many slides to cover. So let's have a look. All right. So we drew that circle. You're very familiar with that circle now. That circle is half of my map of potential, which I take people through. And that circle, everything inside of that circle represents the known. Okay, so these are feelings, words, you know, things that are happening in your body, actions that you're taking or not taking. All of that is in the realm of the known. You know that, right? And all of that contributes to the psychological patterns that you go through to rinse and repeat those feelings over and over again. You would agree that nothing in there is new, okay? And patterns are patterns because there's something that repeated over and over again. And most of us live our lives inside of that circle, inside of the known. What the opportunity is to live outside of the circle. So outside of the circle are all the things that we don't know. So we want to live actually from the unknown into the known, but how we live is from the known into the unknown. Okay. And the difference between that is that you're casting a net, if you like, out into the unknown to be something that you don't know if you can be or how to be. And you're just pulling that towards you. So in the case of Audrey, I'm just going to use that example because we've got that, and you know, we're not interacting vocally at the moment. So Audrey, if you're looking at your studies and you're saying, okay, there's this aspect of my study that's out in the unknown, but there's a way that I need to be that is also unknown to me. So I need to build some tools and some strategies for going from where I know to the unknown. And I have to be mindful that in the process, my inner critic is going to go wild. And if it doesn't get checked out, and if it doesn't, you don't keep it in check, then what's going to happen is it's going to keep you stuck inside of that circle. So as you're making strategies, you know, and you're answering that question, how could it be easy? That's out in the unknown. That's pulling from the unknown towards you to make things easier for you. All right. So I don't want to go into that too much because I can confuse you very easily, but hopefully that makes sense. Does anyone want to ask any questions or comment just on that? There's a message in chat. Oh no, that was before, so we're good. Yep. All right. So what does being in the unknown means? It means risking failure. It means risking being seen. So it's more of that fear of exposure. Risking belonging. So what I mean by that is that you're actually risking it's the fear of rejection. So sometimes when you choose to tread your own path, to go your own way, you're going to have to come out of some of the tribes or the cliques or the friendships or the family networks that you're in to be able to do the things that you need to do. So obviously, you know, I'm talking with women in business who are going against the grain of what they've been told to do. Like some of them are mothers, and as mothers, we're told we need to look after the kids, but they're running a business, so they can't be doing that. So, you know, there's a risk there in terms of you're not doing what you should be doing, right? So there's the risk of humiliation, the risk that you're going to get it wrong, the risk that you're going to get attention. And this works both in the positive and the negative. A lot of women in business, and whether they're running their own businesses or they're in your business, then they don't want to risk getting attention, right? And attention can be good and bad, but they don't want to be in that spotlight because that potentially risks them getting their head chopped off, you know, and certainly not in your businesses, I'm sure, but that does happen out in the corporate space. So why is this important? Why are we having this conversation? Because chances are you are like a firefighter who has the hose, who has all the gear and the equipment, who has the water. And if your inner critic wins, the people that you're trying to help, their house is going to burn down. We don't want that. We want you to find strategies where you're going to be able to deal with that inner critic and how it shows up for you in your life, so that when you are able to, you can help the people that you're here to serve, right? And it's not going to hold you back. So you can actually put the fire out. All right. Why am I so passionate about this? I think I'm going to be very brief here because we are coming up to time, but part of my fuel and my energy for doing this is because it is my calling, and because I have had people in my life who had a calling to do something, but because of their own trauma, because of their imposter syndrome, and because of their own inner critics, they were never able to cross that bridge to get into action to do the things that they needed to do. This lady isn't my friend, but she represents my friend Pip, who died 2 years ago with the music still in her. Pip was in her late, 40s. She had so much ambition. She was so knowledgeable about warfare, about political plays, about the COVID situation, about cybersecurity, and she could tell you things that, were pretty much top secret. And, her life ended early, and she became ill, and she left the planet very quickly. And that was devastating to me because I feel like each of us has something beautiful to share in this world. We have people that we're going to impact. We have something to contribute, and we're here to be of service. And my mission is to help people bring that out and live their mission, because life is too short to die with the music still in you. All right. So key strategies, as I said, to ask questions, to learn to see and value your accomplishments, and to embrace the unknown. So today we've covered part of the journey. And certainly I believe, you know, and I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to stop in just a little while for you to be able to share. We've taken you from where you are and hopefully given you some steps forward that you could start to put in place for yourself now. For me, I run a program called Stepping In. It says here it's designed for women in business. Let me just say that the work that we do here is designed for all humans. Obviously, my business is called She Leadership, so it tends to be focused that way. And this program looks at releasing the brakes so that you can get results that you want to get for yourself in your life and in your business and do more of what you love. The program focuses on these invisible forces that we've talked about today, but goes a whole lot further and helps you to identify how these invisible forces are actually impacting your success. We look at something called the stopping strategies. So we actually deep dive into those patterns and how they manifest, and then look at how they actually stop you. So you can see them on paper. We actually map them out, and that has a huge impact for people to be able to identify exactly what they're doing to themselves, because when it's happening up here and it's not being spoken, it's impacting you, but on an invisible basis. So we put it on paper, and so you can relate to that and you can actually see it in action. Then we help you create blueprints and strategies for making new choices and then getting new results in your life. I take a holistic view with everything that I do. So I look at you in terms of you being a mind, a body, you know, you have emotions and you have a spirit. A lot of what's out there in the personal development world tends to treat you from the neck up. And there's a lot of willpower and your mindset kind of stuff going on, but that's no good if your mind is saying something and your body is saying something else. So we work holistically in that way. This is a conscious and a subconscious process. So again, a lot of what's out there will tend to work in the realm of the conscious or the subconscious, but don't bring the two together. My passion for this is about helping you see how it's working on both levels so that you can start to make a transformation at both those levels. You need to be conscious, like when you do work that only works on the subconscious, like things like hypnosis and what have you, you have patterns of behavior, patterns of acting, patterns that are habits that are ingrained in you that they don't always resolve. And because you have no conscious awareness of that, you'll just continue to repeat them. So we look at those patterns, we help you create new patterns, help you identify your limiting beliefs, and then I take you in much more detail on the map of potential. And the map of potential is really designed for you to be able to, on a moment-by-moment basis, see when you're living into your potential and when you're not, and how your head and those invisible forces are playing out. All right, so my goal with the program is that you get to do more of what you love, you get to serve your community, make a difference, make the money you need to live the lifestyle that suits you. You have a community and a support network. And, you know, ultimately you're in love with your life because you're leading your way. All right, so what's included? So the Stepping In program is a 4-week one-on-one coaching program. There are 4 study papers that go with that. You get an e-journal to track and measure your progress. And you get a forgiveness meditation that you can download and listen to at any time. What's also included, particularly if you book between now and I believe it's the 14th of April, you'll get a grounding meditation again for you to just come out of when that limbic brain has been activated and you're highly emotional. You can use that grounding meditation to come back to center. You get a 30-minute coaching call with me after the program's completed, and you get the ability to reset the program at any time in the future at no extra cost. The investment for this program is 3 payments of $399, or you can pay one off of $997. And the invitation there is to book a call. So Justin, if you are interested to book a call, regardless of whether you want to work with me or not, the link is in the chat. You can scan the QR code depending on how you're listening today. And I would invite you to do that. There's no obligation. I'm not here to do the hard sell. This is either for you or not for you. I am so grateful that you decided to join me today and to give me your valuable time. Thank you so much for that. And just some testimonials with regards to what people have got. And I also want to say, like, you know, I promised you some free gifts at the end of this webinar. So I will be emailing those out to you. All right, so that concludes today. We're bang on time. We've got about a minute. I'd love to hear from you, just if there's any final words that you want to share. Was this useful? Was this helpful? Excellent, Audrey. I'm so glad to hear it. All right, everyone. Well, yes, David, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. It's I found it very even though I think it's applicable, resonates with male and female and male. I think, definitely in terms of the archetypal thing, I can definitely see myself or some of my other team members in the various thing. What I really like is the fact that she was here with my daughter, so it's given us a fair few things that would allow us to probably continue the conversation. We visit some of those topics.
Okay, excellent. And David, as I said, you know, my booking link is right there. I'd love it if you guys would book a call with me, maybe at the end of this week, maybe next week, and just a general conversation, no sell whatsoever. I'd just love to hear and be able to share with you, you know, what you've got from this.
Yep, awesome, for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent. Oh, great, Justin. That's so good. Really, really good. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to talk more about the inner critic, because I think particularly in schools and things like that, if we understood that we're all having these thoughts, if this is going on inside of all of us, and it became something that was normal as opposed to something like where you're ostracized for it, then we can all just get on with being human, right? Like, just there's a lot more compassion in the world. All right, gents. Well, thank you so much. As I said, I look forward to talking to both of you. Have a wonderful night. And yeah, go ahead and put those strategies into action. Be well. Good night.